Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Adib. So I will start with the introduction. So the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has been central in addressing economic crisis in developing countries, often through loans tied to conditionally agreements. These conditions, typically involving budgetary restriction and economic reforms, have been a source of significant debates. This case study explores whether the IMF should continue attaching conditions to the credit it extends, or whether it should abandon this practice and allow countries to access funding without strict reforms. The policy analysis will delve into the effects of these conditions, the role they play in protecting IMF resources, and alternative strategy that could balance financial support with economic recovery.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Lidenia. So I will be present about the background of analysis. So the IMF was established to promote international monetary cooperation, financial stability and trade. There's a condition applied to require borrowing countries to implement reform such as austerity, measures to reduce deficit, trade liberalization and economic restructuring. There's critics argue that conditionality will cut the public services and worsening poverty and unemployment. They also argue that they have to follow a one-size-fits-all approach that will ignoring the local needs.
Okay, now I will discuss about the policy options. So we already provide two policy options, which is the first one is to maintain conditionality agreements. So for this one, we start with the resource protection, which is they need to ensure that IMF loans are repaid by requiring borrowing countries to make necessary fiscal and economic adjustment. Secondly, they promotes reform like improved fiscal policies and governance to strengthen repayment capacity. For the second point, is crisis resolutions. So they need to tackle root causes of economic crisis such as unsustainable debt or inefficient spending. They also need to ensure the countries implement necessary, albeit unpopular, reform for long-term recovery and stability. Lastly, global stability. For this one, they need to prevent financial contagion by stabilizing borrowing countries, and then they also need to reduce spillover risk from crises that could impact regional and global markets. Okay, for the second options, which is eliminate conditionality. So they start with national sovereignty, which is they need to respect countries' autonomy to determine their own economic policies. They also need to avoid external interference in domestic policy making. Next is context-specific solutions. So for this one, they allow countries to design recovery strategies tailored to their unique economic and social conditions. They also promote flexibility and adaptability in addressing local challenge. Lastly, social equity. So they need to avoid the negative social impact of austerity, such as cuts to public service and increase inequality. Lastly, focuses on protecting vulnerable population and promoting equitable development.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So my name is Muhammad Shafiq Ikmal. So I will discussing about IMF conditionality, its role in the economic crisis, the importance of protecting IMF resources, and the potential implication of the eliminating conditionality. Let's begin by understanding the role of conditionality in economic crisis. So the role of IMF conditionality in economic crisis. In countries seeking IMF assistance, often the result of domestic mismanagement, global market volatility, and external shock. So IMF conditionality aims to address structural issues, but it's not the sole cause of the crisis. So, however, harsh austerity measure like the cutting public spending and then can deepen poverty, unemployment, and delay recovery. So, critics argue that IMF one-size-fits-all approach doesn't account for rich country and units needs, and tailored solutions focus on specific national challenges are crucial for achieving sustainability recovery. And then let's move on for the protection of IMF resources. The IMF resources are critical for assisting member country. A condition helps protect with these resources is ensure that loans are used effectively and repaid on time. The second point for the protection IMF resources, conditionality promotes accountability by requiring a country to address systemic issue causing instability. Without conditions, the higher risk of measure which could compromise the IMF ability to assist others. And the last, although strict conditions can strain relationship, that are essential for maintaining global financial and stability. And then the last implication of eliminating conditionally. What is conditionally will remove? And then to answer it, each country might delay necessary reform leading to prolonged instability and increased default risk. The IMF credibility could be weakened and country may misuse loans for short-term needs instead for structural change. Over time, this could create the moral hazard where nations rely on IMF assistance without addressing root cause. A potential solution is a more flexible, tailored approach to conditionality, reducing more social costs and fostering cooperation between the IMF and borrowing nations. To conclude, IMF conditionally play a critical role in the addressing economic crisis and protecting its resources. However, reform must balance the IMF goals with the unit's needs of borrowing country. Moving forward, a flexible approach could improve cooperation and outcome for all stakeholders. Thank you for listening. Let's move on to the next presenter. That's all for me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I want to present about position and justification IMF. So for the first point is the case of conditionally. So the IMF conditionally ensure that the country address such a economic problem, such as largest deficient and unestablished debts. So without this condition, financial aid should be provided in temporary relief without solve the root issue. However, it is important that this policy do not cause unnecessary economic hardship. So instead, conditional should be implemented in a way that supports both stabilization and sustainable growth. So my next point is making conditionally more effective. Means one of the major criticism of the IMF approach is a one-size-fits-all mode. So many countries have a unique economy and social challenge. So the ethical policy, such as cutting government spending or raising tax, can be sometimes do more harms and good. So instead, we raise the tax, we can do income in country with a higher poverty level, such as public spending on healthy care, education, and social welfare must be protected to avoid worsening inequality. So next point is achieving sustainable growth. Meanwhile, economies such as stable often require two adjustment. is a balance short-term certification with a long-term development. The IMF should support the graduate approach that parallelize investment and innovate infrastructure, jobs and education, rather to the focus social solidarity on immediately fiscal technique. Additionally, involving location of government, business and civil society in policy decision can approve employment and ensure that reform are both technically and socially accepted. So I will pass to the next presenter.
Next is anticipated criticism and defense. On the left side of the slide is the criticism. First is conditionality impose harsh austerity measures. Our defense is the IMF can help protect vulnerable populations by including subsidies for essential goods and unemployment benefits and also targeted cash transfer. Gradual implementation of reforms allow building government's capacity and gaining public support for changes. It also will help minimizing disruption to livelihoods and economic stability. Second is one size fits all approach. Our defense, a reform framework would prioritize country-specific analysis before implementing reforms. Policy would address unique economic, social and political realities. For example, low-income countries could focus on infrastructure investment and middle-income countries might prioritize structural market reform. This adaptive approach ensures policies are relevant and effective in achieving stabilization goals. Last is undermining national sovereignty. Our defense is conditionality agreements are created in consultation with borrowing governments to align with national development goals. The IMF provides technical assistance and capacity building to help countries implement reform independently. This approach strengthens national ownership and reduces perception of external control.
So, for conclusion, even with its drawbacks, IMF conditionally remain as an essential tool for establishing countries going through financial crisis. Instead of completely doing away with conditionality, the IMF could improve its strategy while considering each nation's particular situation. The IMF could assist nations in achieving economic stability while lowering its social and financial costs if its conditionality framework were more adaptable and context specific. This well-rounded strategy will guarantee that the IMF keeps up its vital role in promoting stability and growth in the world economy. So that's all from our group. Thank you.